Where did the earliest Aryans come from? What united them? And how did they shape ancient India? So let's explore the chapter 7, Advent of Aryans and Age of Rig Veda. To begin with, the Aryans were not one single race but a group of people bound together by their common culture and language. They spoke the Indo-European languages, which later spread widely across Europe, Iran and India. Most scholars believe that their original home lay in the vast steppes of southern Russia and Central Asia. Life in those grasslands were mainly pastoral, meaning they depended heavily on animals, especially on cows and horses, though agriculture was practiced in a secondary way. The horse played a significant role in their life, both for travel and warfare, and it was this advantage that helped them expand into new lands. Around 1500 BC, the Aryans began entering the Indian subcontinent in several waves of migration. They first settled in eastern Afghanistan, Punjab, Haryana and western Uttar Pradesh. This area came to be known as Sapta Sindhu, or the land of 7 rivers. The Rig Veda, the earliest text in Sanskrit and also the oldest Indo-European text we know, describes this region vividly. Among the rivers, the Sindhu, that is Indus, was praised repeatedly, while the Saraswati was called the greatest of rivers. Although previously, the Saraswati is often linked to the Gagrahakar river in Haryana and Rajasthan, in the Rig Veda, it may have referred to the Helmand river of Afghanistan. The entry of the Aryans into India was not with peace. They came across the Dasa and the Dasyu, the terms used in the Rig Veda for the hostile groups. Sometimes Dasa referred to the another branch of Aryans, while Dasyu seemed to have denoted the darker-skinned local inhabitants with different customs. The Aryans had an edge in the battle because they brought with them horses, chariots and superior weapons. Their most important war god, Indra, is even described as Purandra, meaning breaker of forts. The Aryans, however, did not just fight outsiders, they also fought among themselves. The most famous example of this battle is the Battle of 10 Kings, fought on the banks of the river Ravi, called Parushini. In this battle, King Sudas of the Bharata tribe, guided by his praised Vasishtha, defeated a confederation of 10 rival chiefs. This victory is so significant that the name Bharatavarsha ultimately derived from the Bharata tribe. Later, the Bharatas joined with another tribe, the Purus, to form the powerful Kuru tribe, which became central in later Vedic times. If we turn to the material life of the Rig Vedic Aryans, it is clear that they were still largely pastoral people. Cows were the most important measures of wealth, and even the word for war in the Rig Veda, Gavishti, literally means search for cows. Agriculture was known and practiced. They ploughed the land, sowed seeds, and harvested crops, though often the purpose was to produce fodder for cattle rather than surplus grains. The Aryans also worked with copper and bronze tools, and their artisans included carpenters, potters, leather workers, weavers, and chariot makers. Yet, they did not live in large cities. Instead, they occupied mud houses, small villages, and sometimes caves in the mountains. Archaeological evidence from sites such as Bhagwanpura in Haryana and certain places in Punjab, where painted grey-ware pottery and cattle bones have been found, which supports semi-nomadic pastoral agrarian life. Politically, Aryan society was tribal in nature. The chief, called the Rajan, led his people in war and rituals. But he was not an all-powerful monarch. His authority was balanced by tribal assemblies. The Sabha, that is Council of Elders, and Samiti, that is General Assembly, were the most important, and interestingly, in the early Rig Vedic period, women could also attend these assemblies. Other assemblies such as Vidata and Gana performed military and religious functions. The king was assisted by officials such as Purohita, the priest, and Senani, that is commander of the army, and Gramani, that is head of the fighting group, who later became village head. There was no system of regular taxation. Instead, people have bali or voluntary offerings. Since there was no standing armies, soldiers were drawn from tribal militants whenever required. Socially, the Rig Vedic Aryans were organized around kingship and tribe. The tribe was called the Jana, and the loyalty was directed more towards the tribe than towards any fixed territory. The family, known as Griha, was patriarchal and joint family, often with several generations living under the same roof. Sons were particularly desired, while daughters were not much valued in the hymns. Women, however, still had an important place in society. They could attend assemblies, perform sacrifices with their husbands, and some even compose hymns in the Rig Veda. Marriage was recognized institution, and practices such as widow remarriage and levirate, that is marrying the brother of deceased husband, were followed. Child marriage was unknown, and the marriageable age for girls seems to have been around 16 to 17 years. When it comes to social division, the Rig Veda used the word Varna, which originally meant color. The Aryans were generally fairer skinned, while the indigenous people were darker, and this may have contributed to early social distinctions. More importantly, the conquest of the local inhabitants created inequality. Over time, society began to split into three groups: priests, that is Brahmins, warriors, that is Kshatriyas, and common people, that is Vaishyas. Later, the Shudras, who are servants, were added as a fourth group, and it is mentioned for the first time in the 10th book of Rig Veda. Slavery was also existed, but slaves were usually women given as gifts to the priest and were not directly used in agriculture work. Overall, though inequalities were emerging, the society remained largely tribal and egalitarian, with wealth measured more in cattle than in land. Finally, the religion of the Rig Vedic people was shaped by their natural environment. They worshipped forces of nature, personifying them as gods. The most important deity was Indra, the god of war and rain, who received nearly 250 hymns. Agni, that is fire god, were next in the importance with about 200 hymns. Varuna represented the cosmic order and water, while Soma was both a god and a sacred plant used to prepare an intoxicating drink for rituals. The Maruts, or storm god, also appear frequently. Female deities such as Usha, that is dawn, and Aditi existed but were less prominent compared to male gods. Worship was conducted through prayers and sacrifices, often offered collectively by the tribes. Importantly, these prayers were not meant for salvation or liberation, rather they were practical requests for children's, cattle, food, health and prosperity. In summary, the Rig Vedic Aryans were pastoral, semi-nomadic tribes who valued cattle as wealth, fought both outsiders and among themselves, lived in patriarchal joint families and worshipped natural forces through simple rituals. Their society was beginning to show divisions of class and occupation, which later developed into the Varna system. So I hope you understood the chapter 7 of Ancient India, and if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe.